Hey guys, tonight we're heading deep into the wild, whispering heart of Siberia, where the clouds hang low like secrets, and the trees don't like being watched. You're not on some easy trail here. No cell service, no GPS, just you, your gear, and the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. Somewhere beneath the drifting snow and curling fog, a mystery waits for you, one that's been unsolved for over 3 decades. You'll meet a cheerful group of hikers, young, fit, all smiles, and you'll wish you could warn them. But the mountain doesn't care about your warnings, it just watches. And honestly, you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step off the worn platform of the Lyudmila train station, the boards damp with melted frost and the faint scent of pine heavy in the air. The early morning is quiet, almost too quiet, but the kind of quiet you can still shrug off as peaceful. Your breath puffs in short clouds as you sling your pack over your shoulder. You're one of 7 in the group. 6 students, or recent grads, led by Lyudmila Korovina, a hardened outdoors woman with a face that rarely smiles, but eyes that watch over everyone like a hawk. It's August 2nd, 1993. This is supposed to be a medium difficulty, hike thick forests, elevation changes, tricky river crossings, but nothing Lyudmila hasn't tackled dozens of times. She's basically Siberia's Bear Grylls, minus the cameras and snake sushi. You feel safe with her, even when her instructions come out clipped and sharp like bark on bark. The Khamar-Daban Mountain Range rises ahead, a jagged green and gray silhouette that seems too grand for its low altitude. It's not Everest, it's not even the Urals, but it has mood. The way clouds snarl around its peaks, the way sudden weather rolls in like spilled ink, it makes seasoned hikers take pause. There's a local Buryat legend that calls these peaks the back of the earth dragon. Hikers sometimes claim to hear rustling just off the trail, footsteps that mirror their own, and the soft hiss of breath in places where no one stands. You laugh that stuff off, mostly. Still, Lyudmila insists on a tight pace and strict rules. No wandering off, no shortcuts, no just 5 more minutes when it's time to rest, and absolutely no night hiking. That's when the trees get teeth, she jokes, or not. The first 2 days pass with stunning, postcard-worthy views, waterfalls trickling like silver threads, alpine meadows stuffed with wildflowers. You snack on condensed milk and dark bread, swapping jokes in that casual, I'm not getting murdered tone that hikers use when everything's going too well. You even run into another group, Alexander Krylov's hiking team. Big smiles, shared thermoses, a few barbed jokes about which group will summit faster. The air's chilly but clear, and you part ways with a cheerful see you at the checkpoint that of course never happens, because Khamar-Daban has already made its choice. It's August 4th when the mountain starts to whisper no. Dark clouds slide in like a time-lapse nightmare, curling over the peaks as if poured from a cauldron. One moment you're laughing at someone's impression of Gorbachev, and the next the wind punches the laughter out of your lungs. It turns sharp, urgent, full of static and ice. You fumble with your hood as the first gusts slap your cheeks red. Lyudmila's head jerks upward. She doesn't say anything, just looks at the sky with that I know what this is expression that makes your stomach flutter. You're above the tree line now, no cover. Just rock and scrub and snow that wasn't supposed to fall until late September. You push forward because that's what hikers do. You trust the leader. You lean into the wind. You don't know it yet, but you've already crossed the line. Somewhere behind you, history folds in a little. It's like stepping onto a hidden page, one with margins scribbled in code. Historians still argue whether the group took the correct route. Some say they veered slightly north, closer to known military zones. Others claim the mountain itself is geologically unstable, speckled with odd mineral patterns and electromagnetic anomalies. A few geologists even believe magnetic declination there might mess with compasses and internal sense of direction. You know, just enough to make you walk in a circle and not notice. And it's not just ghost stories and compasses. Back in the 1940s, Soviet geophysicists reported unusual radar interference in the area, waves bouncing weird, as if something unseen was warping the air. The papers never made headlines, of course. The Soviets had a thing for burying inconvenient discoveries in basements deeper than submarines. But you don't know any of this. All you know is the rain's gone horizontal, the rocks are slick as soap, and Lyudmila is suddenly more serious than usual. She doesn't bark now, she pleads. We need to find shelter. Quickly. You descend into a narrow saddle between two ridges, searching for anything that could serve as a windbreak. Trees reappear, low, spindly pines that look more decorative than useful. You settle in a clearing that doesn't feel right. The wind doesn't whistle here, it hums, like a low electrical current brushing against your skin. That night, the cold bites. One hiker, Tatiana, coughs so hard she vomits. Just nerves, someone says. Lyudmila doesn't look convinced. Sleep doesn't come easy. You lie awake, heart thudding, eyes watching the tent fabric flutter like it's breathing. A part of you wants to unzip and look outside. Another part whispers don't. 6 friends, 1 mountain, 0 phone signal. You'd think that with a leader like Lyudmila Korovina, nothing could go wrong. She's built like a granite statue, tempered by years in the Siberian wild. You've heard stories, river crossings and spring floods, nights spent under stars at -20. Even that time, she once wrestled a goat off a cliff to save her student's pack, though the goat might have been more metaphor than mammal. Either way, you trust her. Everyone does. Your group of 7 in total feels solid. There's Tatiana, the bubbly one with a fringe too perfect for wilderness. Then there's Victoria and Timur, quiet but always nearby, the kind of duo you'd peg as low-key soulmates. Sasha is the prankster, often dangling weird trivia like, did you know ants stretch when they wake up? Or there's a mushroom in Oregon that's older than Rome. He says it with a grin that makes you believe him. Denise and Valya round out the team, Valentina Utochenko, that is, the youngest and somehow the one with the best stamina. Always 10 paces ahead but never showing off. They're strong hikers, not greenhorns. Most had trained under Lyudmila at a regional sports school. It's not just a hike, it's part of a certification. They need to complete this for their tourist category advancement, something like a hiking belt upgrade. Think of it as Dungeons & Dragons meets Soviet athletic rigor. You're not just here for views, you're here to prove something. And on paper, the Khamar-Daban range is a solid test but manageable. Roughly 80 kilometers across, the mountains average 2,000 meters high. Not monstrous, but the range is moody. Think tiny Alps with attitude. What makes this area tricky is its refusal to be predictable. Temperatures nosedive. Trails vanish under rain-swollen rivers. And once, a whole swath of hikers got disoriented by fog so thick they looped in circles for 11 hours before realizing they'd been going nowhere. GPS was barely a fantasy in 1990. No satellites to text for help. Just maps, compasses, and gut feeling. You move through forests so thick you sometimes have to sidestep branches like dancers in a slow-motion waltz. Birds flit above, their calls strange and hollow like they're echoing in the wrong direction. At one point, you pass a stone marker etched in Cyrillic, cracked in half and sunken into the soil. No one knows what it once said. Lyudmila nods at it solemnly and keeps walking. By the evening of August 3rd, everything feels fine. You set up camp on a slope overlooking a narrow stream. The water's icy, rushing over smooth stones with that hypnotic gurgle that lulls people into naps. Denis plays a quiet tune on his harmonica. Someone throws pine needles into the fire to watch them sizzle. Valya laughs as Sasha tries to toast a bit of fish on a stick and ends up flambeing it instead. The smoke curls up into the dusk sky, and for a moment, Everything is textbook perfect. Historically, it's worth noting, 1993 is a chaotic time for Russia. The Soviet Union had dissolved only 2 years prior, and the country's still stumbling through economic transition, privatization, and political unrest. Supplies are scarce. People hoard what they can. Fuel lines stretch for blocks. And in many parts of Siberia, infrastructure is patchy at best. But here, in this pocket of mountain wilderness, the outside world might as well be another planet. It's just you, the cold air, and the heartbeat rhythm of your own footsteps. A fringe detail, though, one of those odd quirks history sometimes buries in footnotes. This particular route hadn't been approved by the committee. Technically, Lyudmila had submitted an itinerary, but the exact trail they're on, it's a variant, a bit off the official course. Not by much, but enough. Whether it was due to weather or preference, no one knows. Historians still argue whether this deviation was a fatal choice or just an unlucky coincidence. Your last moment of normal happened sometime around 6 a.m. on August 4th. The light is gray, the air sticky with dew, and Lyudmila is already boiling water over a stove that looks like it was salvaged from an oil rig. You stretch your limbs, your muscles ache in that deeply satisfying, earned way. You eat dried buckwheat with canned meat, which tastes better than it should, and sip weak black tea sweetened with smuggled sugar cubes. You notice the sky first. Not cloudy, more like bruised. Purple-gray clouds seem to congeal, not drift. The wind stirs low, urgent. Lyudmila's eyes narrow. She checks her barometer and mutters something about pressure dropping fast. You pack up quickly. The first few hours are a battle. You lean into the climb, raindrops pricking your face like needles. Mud sucks at your boots. Valya trips once, cursing under her breath. You glance back, and for a moment, it looks like the trees behind you are bending the wrong way. Then the fog swallows them, and they're gone. Communication becomes a struggle. The wind's too loud. Lyudmila uses hand signals, now pointing, gesturing, eyes scanning the terrain like it's a live wire. You feel her anxiety before she says anything. By late morning, the group starts splintering slightly. Not far, just little gaps as people adjust pace. Victoria lags, Sasha sticks back with her, cracking jokes about becoming forest goblins if they get left behind. You hear laughter, but it's brittle. Somewhere around noon, you crest a ridge and spot a strange shape ahead. A twisted metal pole, half rusted, sticking out of a mound of earth. It looks like an old antenna or maybe lightning rod. No explanation, no markings, just standing there alone, like it's listening. You don't stop to investigate. If you had, you might have noticed the scorched grass around its base. You push on, your mind humming from exhaustion and static in the air. Your hands tremble, not from fear yet, but from cold and low blood sugar. Lyudmila calls for a brief rest in a shallow gully flanked by rocky outcroppings. You sit down, grateful. You don't know that this will be the last rest where everyone's still alive. Later, you try to replay this moment in your head. Everyone upright, everyone breathing, talking, smiling even, and within 24 hours, 5 of them will be dead. The weather flips like a light switch. No warning, no slow build. Just cracked sunlight gone, and you're squinting through a gray smear of rain and sleet so sudden it feels like someone switched the channel on your reality. August 4th, early afternoon. You're trudging up a rocky incline, shoulders hunched against the cold, when the air changes. Not just temperature, it feels different, thicker, electric. You suck in a breath that tastes like metal, and suddenly your lungs protest. Your hands go clammy inside your gloves. The group doesn't say much. Maybe no one wants to voice what you're all feeling. Lyudmila halts, raises her hand. You huddle near a mossy overhang while she crouches to study the map. But the terrain doesn't match the grid. The ridges look wrong, too narrow and jagged. The compass needle dances like it's tipsy. Valya frowns. We've dropped elevation too fast, she murmurs. Lyudmila grunts. We're adjusting. The group shifts uneasily. It's not panic, not yet. But it's no longer just a hike. You've left the zone of reason. You're in something else now, somewhere that doesn't care what you prepared for. The storm hits hard. Wind howls through the peaks, slamming into you like a wall of icy fists. The temperature drops 15 degrees in under an hour. What was a light drizzle becomes freezing rain. You scramble to throw on ponchos. Too late, your inner layers are already soaked. Here's the thing, weather shifts like this are not common in August. Historians still argue whether the sudden storm was meteorological bad luck or part of a larger localized phenomenon. Some even suggest strange jet stream anomalies unique to that valley. But the official records barely acknowledge anything out of the ordinary that day. No big front, no cyclone, just silence. As if the storm only happened to you. You need shelter. Fast. Lyudmila leads you down the slope to a small depression near a tree line. The trees here look stunted, twisted. Roots exposed like they're trying to crawl away from something underground. You want to say this out loud, but your tongue sticks, probably just the cold. You dump your packs, pitch a crude tarp lean-to, and huddle beneath it, soaked and shivering. Sasha tries to light a portable stove. The flame sputters, then dies. "Fuel's wet," he mutters, teeth chattering. Someone coughs. You glance over. It's Tatiana. She's wrapped tight in her parka, but her hands are trembling too hard to hold her mug. "I don't feel right," she whispers. Her voice is thin, distant. You reach out to steady her arm and pull back. Her skin is ice. Victoria throws her a blanket. Timur rubs her shoulders. Everyone's rattled, but you're still in that rational space where you think, we've been cold before, we've been wet before. This will pass. It doesn't. Within the hour, Tatiana begins vomiting, not just once. Violent, body-wrenching spasms that leave her gasping. You try to help, but her skin is pale blue now, and there's blood in the foam at her lips. Lyudmila kneels by her, murmuring to herself, half prayer, half checklist. Sasha stumbles to his feet, turns to say something, then collapses forward into the mud. No warning. 1 second he's upright, the next he's convulsing. A horrible sound tears from his throat. His eyes are wide, unfocused. His hands claw at his own chest like he's trying to rip something out. You freeze. Everyone freezes. Lyudmila screams for someone to help. Valya rushes over. You try to stand, but your legs shake. Your pulse hammers against your skull. Timur begins to mutter. "My ears," he says, "they're ringing, too loud." He stumbles, drops to his knees. His nose starts bleeding. Not a trickle, a flood. Thick and fast, like his face has sprung a leak. You want to run. Every instinct screams, get away. But you're rooted to the spot, watching your friends fall one by one like trees in a storm. Victoria's the next. She lets out a strange whimper and sinks to the ground, curling into herself, her limbs twitching. Lyudmila grabs her, shouting words that don't make sense. Commands that are 3 steps too late. The woman who could cross frozen rivers barefoot now looks small, broken. Her coat flaps in the wind as she stares down at her students, her children, really dying at her feet. And then Lyudmila starts foaming at the mouth. It's a scene out of a horror film, only there's no music, no camera cuts, just the raw, stuttering silence between screams and gasps, the slap of sleet on nylon, and the sound of someone, maybe you, whimpering into their sleeve. You, Valya, and Denis are the only ones still standing. Valya is yelling something. Denis grabs your arm, eyes wide, and shouts, "We have to go." But where? The fog is everywhere. The trees look closer now, or maybe just taller. You're not sure if you're seeing things or if your brain is trying to make sense of shapes it doesn't recognize. You think you hear a low humming, not the wind. Something deeper, like a vibration inside your skull. For the record, this part of the story, it's where the theories begin to spiral. Some say this sudden breakdown, this instant multi-person meltdown, suggests chemical exposure. Military leak? Experimental toxin? Historians still argue whether there were any classified operations happening near Khamar-Daban that year. But the truth is, Soviet and post-Soviet military records are a tangled mess of redacted nonsense and lost files. Others whisper about sound infrasound, to be exact. That's ultra-low frequency sound that humans can't consciously hear. But that's been shown to induce panic, nausea, hallucinations. It's a fringe theory, sure, but it's not science fiction. The ghost frequency is real. Some researchers have even replicated the feeling of being watched or haunted just by playing certain tones. You don't know any of that now. All you know is 6 of your friends are either dead or dying, and the mountain seems to be watching, waiting, judging. You grab your pack, or maybe just part of it, and stumble after Valya and Denis as they drag themselves down slope. You don't remember grabbing a flashlight, but your hand is clenched around one. Your boots slip. Branches claw at your face. There's blood in your mouth from biting your cheek. None of it matters. The cold has stopped feeling cold. Now it feels like surrender. You stumble, knees in mud, hands clawing at wet earth, your breath hiccuping like a skipping stone across a frozen lake. Behind you, the screams have faded into wind. The forest doesn't echo them, it swallows them whole. Denis is up ahead, moving with that desperate, shoulder-hunched pace of someone running on instinct, not reason. Valya's just behind him. Her face is streaked with rain, and yes, probably tears, but she's not slowing down. You push yourself upright and follow, legs aching, soaked to the marrow. Somewhere between the adrenaline and the terror, you lose track of time. 10 minutes, 30, an hour. All you know is that you've gone far enough that the fog starts to lift, just slightly, like the mountain's curiosity has faded. The slope softens, and you find yourself in a sheltered hollow with the scraggle of trees and a few dry patches under thick branches. Valya collapses first, curling into herself. Denis paces in tight, agitated circles. He keeps muttering over and over. Something was wrong. Something was wrong with them. You want to say, we need to go back, but the words don't come because you don't want to go back. Not really. Your brain is building barricades to protect itself, and they all lead in the same direction. Away. Valya finally speaks. Lyudmila. She was bleeding too. Her voice is raw. Did you see her face? You nod, then wish you hadn't, because you did. And no part of what you saw made sense. The blue tint to her lips, the red foam, the way her limbs had stiffened. It had looked like poison, or nerve gas, or something out of a Cold War nightmare. Historically, it's true, during the Soviet era, the mountains were dotted with military testing zones. Most are gone now or decommissioned, but no official maps from 1993 show a test site near Khamar-Daban. Still, people talk. Locals mention strange animal deaths in the forest, compasses going haywire. Once, a shepherd swore he saw a beam of green light shoot from the ridge into the sky, silent and pulsing. No one believed him. Maybe you should have. You curl beside Valya and Denis under a tree thick with moss, each of you too exhausted to speak. You eat something, maybe a handful of crushed crackers and sip water that tastes faintly of iron. The cold crawls into your bones and refuses to leave. Your sleeping bag is damp. You drift in and out, eyes half-lidded, brain chewing over images it can't digest. That night, Denis starts screaming in his sleep. You jolt awake, heart hammering, and see him flailing, kicking at something invisible. It takes both you and Valya to wake him. He sobs once, covers his face, and says, "I saw them, all of them, and they were staring." You don't sleep again. The next morning, the world is strangely silent. The wind is gone. Even the birds seem absent. You move like ghosts, shoving gear back into packs, unsure whether you're trying to escape or just survive. The mountain offers no guidance. Around midday, you reach a small river. The current is fast but manageable. You cross using fallen logs, each step a shaky negotiation with gravity. Valya slips once her foot plunges in. and she lets out a squeak of fear, but she recovers. On the other side, Denis finds an old trail marker carved into a tree. It's nearly faded to nothing, but it confirms what you had been hoping. This is a known route. People have come through here before. Maybe someone will again. There's something strangely comforting about the idea that other boots once touched this path. That afternoon, you spot a bit of blue in the sky. Actual blue. It's like a promise that you might just live through this. Denis smiles faintly. Valya cries quietly into her scarf. You don't say anything. You can't. Your throat feels locked up. Words belong to another life. You make camp that night in a small meadow ringed with low stones. Someone once built a fire pit here. You huddle around it, burning every scrap of dry material you can find. At one point, Denis pulls a slip of paper from his jacket, a laminated hiking permit, and feeds it into the flames. Won't be needing that again, he mutters. That night, for the first time, you sleep through till dawn. But even dreams feel heavy now. Dawn isn't golden. It's the dull gray of a hospital hallway, the kind of light that makes everything look sick. Still, you're grateful for it. No more whispers in the dark. No more branches shifting in the corners of your eyes. You stretch, muscles groaning. Denis is already awake, poking at the ash of last night's fire with a stick. Valya's rolled up in her sleeping bag like a burrito, only her nose showing. You force yourself to eat a stale granola bar and wash it down with gritty water. It's survival food now, no flavor, just fuel. Denis pulls out the map. It's wrinkled, damp, and torn in one corner, but still legible. We follow this creek until it meets the lake, he says. From there we can find the ranger station. Valya nods slowly. That's 2 days? Maybe less if we keep moving. That morning hike feels strangely peaceful. The forest is still but not threatening. It's as if the mountain is letting you go, or watching how you carry the story. That's a heavy thing to lug. Midway down the trail, you spot a cluster of mushrooms growing in a perfect ring, fairy circle. You point it out, and Valya gives a weak laugh. We used to jump inside them and make wishes. Make one now, you say. She steps over the ring. I wish we'd get off this mountain alive. The forest doesn't respond, but that silence feels permissive. You keep walking. By mid-afternoon, you're in lower elevations. The snow is gone, replaced by wet moss and slick roots. That's when you find the footprint. Not yours, not Valya's, not Denis's. A single muddy print, barefoot, small. You freeze, Denis leans over it. Could be old? Then where's the rest of the trail, Valya asks. There isn't one. You keep walking. Slower now, word count. 1,090. Section 6. The trail narrows to little more than suggestion, half a path, half imagination. The moss thickens underfoot. Every so often you hear something crack in the trees. Once it's a branch, dry and sharp. Once it might be footsteps. Probably not. You tell yourself it's probably not. Denis keeps scanning behind you. Valya walks close now, sometimes bumping your elbow. The sense of being watched is sticky, like cobwebs clinging to your hair. The footprint hasn't left anyone's mind, though none of you say it. You reach the lake just before dusk. It's bigger than expected, wide and pale with fog curling along its edges like it's trying to escape the water. On the far side, a cabin, or maybe a shed, weather-beaten, sagging slightly. It's not salvation, but it's 4 walls and a roof. Inside, you find old fishing gear, a rusted kettle, and 2 wooden benches. Someone lived here once, probably long ago. Maybe they didn't make it out either. You ignore that thought. The 3 of you eat the last of the crackers. There's a brief argument over whether to risk lighting a fire, but in the end, the cold wins. Flames flicker up from damp logs, casting long shadows that jitter across the walls. Valya tells a story about a woman who survived 3 days in a Siberian blizzard by sleeping inside a gutted deer carcass. Not saying I'd do it, she grins weakly, but don't fall asleep around me. You laugh, it's real almost. That night the dreams come back, but they're not your memories. You see the others, the ones who didn't make it. Their face is frozen mid-scream, their lips blue, their eyes open. Historians still argue whether the symptoms were caused by hypothermia or a toxic reaction, something ingested in tainted snowmelt or mushrooms. But the speed, the violence, it doesn't fit. At some point in the night, you wake up to Denny sitting bolt upright. "They're not done," he whispers. "They don't want us to leave." You don't respond. You just lie there, heart pounding, wondering if maybe you agree. Word count, 1046. Section 7. In the morning, everything is frozen. Your boots crunch through frost-laced grass, and the lake steams faintly as if trying to whisper something to the sky. The cabin behind you looks smaller now, like it's relieved to see you go. You pick your way along the shoreline, skirting patches of soft mud. Denis leads, scanning ahead. Valya walks in the middle. You take the rear, eyes darting to every ripple, every shiver in the trees. By noon, the ranger station should be near. That's what the map said. But instead, you find a clearing with a half-collapsed watchtower. Not quite a lie, just not what you'd hoped. In mud, the tower's base is a journal, moldering and water-damaged. The ink is mostly smeared, but you catch a few phrases: unexplained noises, 3 gone missing, no rescue ordered, something watching. Denise closes the book slowly. "They knew," he mutters. "They knew and left it." Valya picks up a rusted badge. "Forest security," she reads. "There were people here." Mainstream records do list a ranger outpost in the area, but it was decommissioned years before your group arrived. Some say it was shut after a string of disappearances. Officially, it was funding. Unofficially, well, no one's saying. You press forward. The trail's gone now. You navigate by instinct, sun position, in hope. At one point, Valya insists she sees another footprint. Barefoot again. You don't argue. Near dusk, the wind picks up, swirling through the trees with a strange rhythm, almost like a chant. You can't hear words, just intention. You make camp in the lee of a rock face. No fire this time, just blankets, silence, and a sense that something out there is circling. That night, nobody sleeps. You wake before dawn, not because you slept, but because your body has finally stopped pretending to try. The cold has seeped into your bones, made a home there. You feel stiff, hollow, and oddly calm, like the eye of a storm has settled in your chest. Valya is crouched nearby, wrapping and rewrapping a scarf around her neck with compulsive, fidgety fingers. Denise is chewing on something, a pine needle, maybe eyes distant. None of you speak. There's nothing left to say that hasn't already been thought, whispered, or hallucinated. The forest presses in on all sides. Still, waiting. You pack your things without thinking. The motions, muscle memory, now zip, fold, tighten straps. A patch of frost crunches under your heel, and the sound feels louder than it should. You wonder fleetingly if you've gone partially deaf, or if the silence has simply deepened that much. Today's goal, lower ground. The watchtower was a dead end, and the cabin behind you might as well be on the moon. Dennis thinks you're within half a day's walk of a road. If that's true, you've never wanted pavement more in your life. The descent begins steep and awkward. Every root is an ankle trap. Every rock hides ice. You keep thinking about the barefoot prints, about how they weren't just there, they were always just ahead of you. Like you were following something or someone. By midday, the terrain opens slightly, trees thin. You start to see birds again, sparrows maybe. One of them chirps, and Valya lets out a breathy laugh that sounds almost manic. "Hey," she says, "nature's still trying." You nod, but deep down something feels wrong again. A few hours in, Dennis spots movement. All 3 of you freeze. It's a shape, maybe 100 feet ahead, where the trees tangle like braided fingers. Too far to see clearly, but it's there. Pale, upright. "Is that someone?" Valya whispers. You want to say yes, you really do. but the shape doesn't move like a person. It stands still, too still. Then slowly it steps back into the shadows without making a sound. Denis doesn't wait. He grabs your arm and pulls you forward. We're getting out, now. You walk fast, maybe too fast. The trail starts to dissolve again, crumbling into patches of stone and brush. But Denis insists the road is close. We passed the stream 2 hours ago. That means we're near the service cut. Mainstream Soviet logging maps, old, grainy red-line nightmares, show faint outlines of routes through these woods. One of them might be the one you're on. Historians argue whether any of those roads were maintained past the 1980s. Some say the forest took them back. Others claim the maps were faked from the start, deliberate misinformation to hide unofficial activity in the region. You believe both. Because why not? Late afternoon now. The sun's dipped low enough that golden light splinters through the trees like shrapnel. Beautiful. If you weren't half dead and starving, you'd stop and take a photo. Then Valya trips. You turn fast, but it's not just a stumble. She's down, crying out, her ankles twisted, already ballooning beneath the sock. God no, she groans, face white. Denis swears under his breath. He pulls out gauze and begins wrapping her foot with surgeon-like focus. We'll carry her. You look at him like he's lost it. You're already barely staying upright, but you nod. Because what else do you do? With Valya leaning on both of you, you press on. Slower now. Every branch snaps like a warning shot. Every gust of wind feels colder than it should. Twilight comes, and with it, the whispering. You hear it clearly now. Voices, not words, just murmurs, overlapping, circling, curling like smoke around your ears. You don't know if they're real. Valya hears them too. You can tell by her expression, wide-eyed, mouth open, tears streaking down without sobs. You keep going, and then pavement. A patch. A single ribbon of cracked blacktop running between the trees like the promise of civilization. You almost fall to your knees. But then you hear it. An engine, a real one. A truck, old and rattling, appears around the bend. A flatbed with 2 men in the front, blinking like they've seen ghosts. They probably have. The truck stops. The men don't speak. They just motion for you to climb on. You don't argue. You help Valya up first, then Denis, then yourself. The truck starts moving before you're even fully seated. You don't look back. The ride in the truck feels like teleportation, like you blinked and left a nightmare behind. The forest blurs by in streaks of gray and green, wind lashing your face from the open bed. The cold stings, but it's the first pain in days that doesn't feel personal. It just is. You sit between Valya and Denis, neither speaking, all three of you holding onto the sides like if you let go, the woods will reach up and snatch you back. The men in the cab don't look back. Not once. By the time you reach the village, an unmarked scattering of wooden homes on the edge of a thawing field, the sky is soft with low clouds. Smoke drifts from a few chimneys. It smells like birchwood and soup and safety. You nearly cry from the smell alone. They take you to a house. A woman with silver hair and a floral apron ushers you in, murmuring in clipped Russian. You don't catch every word, but the tone is universal. Sit, rest, you're safe now. Soup arrives, thick, hot, potato heavy. You drink it straight from the bowl. Valya does too. Denis just stares into his for a long time before picking up the spoon. A man comes, local police maybe, or forest patrol. He's young and smells faintly of tobacco and aftershave. He has a notebook and a too clean uniform. He speaks carefully, asking about your route, your group, the date. You answer what you can. He writes everything down, occasionally exchanging glances with the woman. You notice he never reacts to what you say. Not with shock, not with doubt, just polite nods, like he's heard it before. And maybe he has. There are whispers about the Khamar-Daban range, always have been. Not just about the Dyatlov past-style cases or military ghosts, But stranger things. Folk stories about the mountains being alive, sentient even, a kind of Siberian echo of animistic belief, where places remember you, judge you. No one writes that in a police report. Later that night, you're given beds, real beds, sheets, pillows. The weight of the blanket feels like a shield. For the first time in days, you fall asleep fast. You dream of snow, of faces half covered in frost, of voices calling your name, not angrily, not in fear, just calling. You wake with a jolt, heart hammering. Dennis is already up, staring out the window. They'll want us to go back, he says. You shake your head. No one wants that. He glances at you. They won't believe it. What happened? You know he's right. In the morning, a van takes you to the regional station. There are more questions, more papers to sign. An official asks if you'd be willing to help with location confirmation for a recovery team. You say no. Dennis says nothing. Valya throws up in the bathroom. Eventually, they stop pressing. The reports will be filed. The story will be logged as a survival incident. No mention of barefoot prints, no mention of missing hours, no mention of the way your lungs still feel wrong. You're sent back to Irkutsk by train. It feels surreal to be on schedule again. Seats, windows, metal rails. Civilization. Historians still argue whether this sort of trauma alters memory, whether the brain reshapes the timeline, fills in blanks, edits out the impossible to protect itself. But you remember what you saw. You remember the screams, the way the air shimmered just before things went wrong, the way the mountain felt like it was holding its breath the whole time. In Irkutsk, you spend the night in a hostel, clean beds, strange roommates, fluorescent lighting. No one around you has any idea what's in your head. You dream again. This time, you're back at the lake. The fog doesn't part. You can't find your pack, and the cabin is gone. When you wake up, Valya is already gone. Left a note, need to go home, can't stay here. Denise tells you he might stay a few more days. Just to read a bit, he says. You nod even though you know what he really means. He wants to find more stories. He's not done. You are. You board your flight, watching the city shrink under clouds. Your ears pop. The hum of the cabin fills your skull. But the silence from the mountain? That never really leaves. You're home. Technically, but home feels off, like a coat that no longer fits. Your walls are the same. Your bed is the same. Even the cereal box on the kitchen counter is exactly where you left it. But you're not the same. You've brought something back with you. And no, it's not just a mild vitamin deficiency and a healthy distrust of mossy rocks. For days, you don't talk much. People ask how the trip went. You give them canned lines, tough hike or weather turn fast. You avoid eye contact. You avoid mirrors. You avoid sleep. The news eventually runs a small piece. 3 hikers survive mystery illness in Siberian mountains. It's vague, sanitized, and already half forgotten. They spell Valya's name wrong. They don't mention the others. You're not surprised. Historians still argue whether post-traumatic silence is a protective instinct or a learned behavior, whether people don't speak because they can't, or because they've learned the world doesn't want to hear it. In your case, it's both. A few days later, Denny messages you. Just 2 words. Found something. You meet at a cafe. He looks thinner, paler, like something is eating him from the inside out. He pulls out a book, old and spine-cracked. Folklore of Eastern Siberia, the title says. He flips to a dog-eared page. Listen to this, he says. They believed the mountains had spirits, sentient forces that judge travelers. If someone disturbed the balance, the spirit could strike them down. Sudden sickness, madness, death. You raise an eyebrow. So we offended the local ghost? Dennis doesn't laugh. Maybe, or maybe we saw what others weren't supposed to. You want to scoff, but deep down it doesn't feel wrong. He continues. There were older stories too. The Evenki people, nomadic reindeer herders, they avoided Khamar-Daban entirely, called it a place of mirrors, said time and space weren't stable there. You shiver, not because it's cold. He taps the book again. There's a theory totally fringe, obviously, that magnetic anomalies in some places mess with human neurology. Hallucinations, fight or flight misfires, even shared delusions. It sounds plausible. Plausible enough to keep you sane. And yet, it still doesn't explain the barefoot prints, or why you still wake up with the sensation that someone is breathing against your neck. That night, you open your closet and stare at your gear. Everything's still there, your pack, your boots, your fleece-lined gloves. You touch the fabric. It feels like touching another life. Weeks pass, spring comes. You go back to work, or school, or whatever used to fill your days. You force yourself into routine. Laundry, email, dinners. But some nights, the world tilts. You'll be brushing your teeth and suddenly smell birch smoke. You'll hear branches creak, but you'll be indoors. You'll feel that buzz in your ears like the pressure's dropped. That's when you know the mountain hasn't let go. Valya calls you once. Her voice sounds steadier. "I'm seeing someone," she says, "a therapist." You say, "That's good." She pauses. "Do you ever feel like we didn't really leave?" "All the time." You lie and say, "Sometimes." You scroll forums late into the night, not the big travel ones. No, you find the strange ones. Pages buried in message boards, digital basements full of misspelled warnings and glitchy photo uploads. You find a thread from 2008. A user called Baikal Hiker 33 describes waking up near Khamar-Daban with no memory of the last 48 hours. His tent was half collapsed. His friend had wandered off and was never found. No follow-up posts. You don't sleep that night. Denis starts a blog. He posts maps, historical links, local stories. No one takes him seriously yet, but a few people reach out. "I've been there," they say. Something was off. That becomes the refrain. Not "it was haunted." Not "it was aliens." Just off. One person describes hearing his own voice echoing before he spoke. Another found a half-buried compass, needle spinning madly. A woman claims she saw a girl in the woods wearing 1950s-era hiking gear. The girl waved, then vanished. You forward these to Valya. She replies with a single line, "I believe them," and that makes 3 of you. You wonder sometimes if Lyudmila knew, if the strange unease she felt wasn't just leadership stress or altitude nerves, but something deeper, some primal instinct kicking in. She journaled everything, notebooks full of planning, temperatures, anecdotes. But what did she not write down? Sometimes the loudest things are what people choose to leave blank. You keep thinking of her last day, how quickly it all fell apart, how fast the storm rolled in, how their bodies were found in positions that made no sense, fleeing from something, but what? No predator leaves prints like that. No illness moves that quickly and selectively. No ordinary panic fractures bones and leaves faces contorted in horror. You tell yourself it's not your mystery to solve, but the mountain disagrees. You're back in your apartment, or maybe it's your parents' place. Wherever it is, the heater hums too loud and the silence isn't the comforting kind. It's the kind that presses in. You leave the lights on at night now, sometimes the TV too. Weeks have passed since the mountain, and yet the mountain hasn't passed from you. You scroll your phone late into the night, chasing distractions. But somehow you always end up looking at that one photo, the group shot, taken before the hike, everyone smiling. Lyudmila, center frame, hands on hips, her eyes almost twinkling, and the rest of them. Timur with his lopsided grin, Sasha and Tatiana with arms linked, Tatiana M., the quiet one standing slightly off-center. You zoom in, their faces are so alive. And now they're not. You go to therapy once. You tell the doctor you're having trouble sleeping. She recommends breathing exercises. Journaling. You don't go back. Valya suggests a memorial, something simple. Just us, she says. And Denis. You meet at a park, sit on a bench, and light candles. No speeches, no sobbing, just silence. A kind that feels appropriate, sacred even. Dennis places a rock on the bench flat, gray from the mountain. They deserve to be remembered, he says. You all nod. No one says what you're really thinking, that it should have been all of you. The next day, you email a professor, a geologist. You ask casually whether Khamar-Daban is known for anything. Strange. He replies within the hour. No seismic instability, he writes. Magnetic anomalies reported anecdotally, but nothing verified. Some rare soil compositions, possibly psychotropic if ingested in quantity, but nothing lethal. Why? You don't answer. Historians still argue whether Lyudmila's group succumbed to poisoning or something more obscure, panic-induced pulmonary edema. Maybe. But that doesn't explain the expressions, the positions of their bodies, or the blood. Denis starts a digital archive. He calls it the Daban Files. Uploads maps, old journal scans, declassified reports. It gets a few clicks, then a few shares. Then someone in Irkutsk posts a message. My uncle worked search and rescue in '93. He was never the same after that trip. Couldn't talk about it. Suddenly, you're getting emails. People who say they've seen shadows near the ridge, lights, sudden headaches. A woman describes her dog refusing to go past a certain bend in the trail, how it whimpered and dug its paws into the dirt until she turned back. There's more than one mountain out there, you realize. There's the map version, altitudes and coordinates. And then there's the other one. The version that lives in whispers and warnings. That one doesn't play by topographic rules. You start to wonder, what if it wasn't just one trip that went wrong? What if there were more? Ones we don't talk about. You look into it. Sure enough, you find a pattern. Every few decades, a group disappears or is found under strange circumstances. Not often enough to be newsworthy, just enough to make the smart ones whisper. And no, it's not just Russia. There are other ranges, other peaks. Dyatlov, Chiripo, the Andes. Mountains don't like being crossed. You dream again. This time you're back at the lake, but you're alone. The fog is thick and humming, and something is under the water. Not a creature, a shape, like the memory of a scream that never got out. You wake up shaking. Denise calls you the next morning. I got a message from a retired border guard, he says. He said there were tests, but not weapons. Something else, he wouldn't say more. You ask if he believes it, he sighs. I don't know, I just know I can't stop looking. Valya's doing better. She's found a job she likes. She doesn't bring up the mountain anymore, but sometimes her hands shake when the wind gets loud. And you've started writing it down, not for answers, just to keep the story from dissolving. Memory is tricky like that, soft at the edges, but stories anchor it. They turn mist into map. You write about the hike, the storm, the faces, the blood. You leave nothing out, not even the footprint, and you end with a question. What did we disturb? You don't expect an answer, but that night you dream of footsteps outside your door, slow, bare, and when you wake, there's mud on your windowsill. The next day arrives not with dawn, but with an absence of dark. That pale, reluctant sky seeps across the canopy like someone forgot to turn on the color. You're not even sure what day it is anymore. Time has peeled off in layers, leaving only urgency and silence behind. You pack up slowly. Valya's eyes are sunken, but steady. Denis has stopped talking. You notice his hands tremble slightly as he slings his pack over his shoulder. None of you say it aloud, but you all feel it. Something is close. Maybe it's the lake's memory. Maybe it's whatever left those footprints. Maybe it's just what grief becomes when it has nowhere else to go. You follow the river again, which now curves like it's deliberately avoiding something. It hugs a low ridge, winds between dead trees, and finally deposits you at a place that shouldn't exist. A fence, rusting, sagging, barbed wire tangled like angry scribbles across the top. Behind it, a flat concrete platform, cracked, moss-covered, industrial, a relic from some long-abandoned project, Soviet lettering flaking off a rusted sign. You can't read all of it, but one word punches through clearly. Object. Valya stares at it. Is this on the map? Dennis checks, shakes his head. You circle the fence until you find a gap where a tree has collapsed through the chain link. You slip through, the metal biting your coat. Inside, the air feels wrong. Heavy, still, like the inside of a sealed tomb. You find more. A hatch in the ground, bolted shut. A concrete shed with a broken keypad. And, inexplicably, a metal gurney in the middle of an overgrown clearing. Just rusting there, half swallowed by vines. A breeze moves through, but the gurney doesn't creak. It's too heavy for that, or maybe too purposeful. Denise walks up to it, kneels, and runs a hand along the surface. They were experimenting here, he murmurs. Something human, or not entirely. Valya backs away. We shouldn't be here. You agree, but curiosity tugs like a fishhook in your chest. Why here? Why them? Why now? Fringe researchers claim secret Cold War experiments range from acoustic weapons to psychoactive field generators devices meant to alter cognition or induce hallucinations. Most of those programs were deemed failures. But what if something was left behind? What if it stayed operational, quietly leaking into the mountain's breath? Denis finds a clipboard in the shed. The paper is nearly unreadable, except for one chilling line. Phase 5 suspended uncontrolled. Autonomic response in 83% of subjects. You don't want to think about what autonomic response means, but you do. You think about foam at the mouth, about frozen hands clawing at invisible attackers, about wide, staring eyes. You leave the site in silence. None of you speak until the fence is out of sight. That night, you set camp in a clearing beneath a sky smeared with stars. It should feel peaceful. It doesn't. The stars look too bright, like they're staring back. Valya finally breaks. She curls into herself and whispers, "They were dying before we ever got there. That place, that thing, it reached them first." You try to comfort her, but you don't have the words. You just sit beside her until she stops shaking. Dennis builds a fire. He doesn't speak, but his jaw is clenched so tight it creaks. You hear something move in the forest, not an animal, not wind, something else. You pretend you didn't hear it. Just as you drift into sleep, you see a light through the trees, flickering, pale green. You close your eyes and pray it's only a dream. But deep down, you know better. Morning creeps in like a guilty secret, pale and trembling. The fire is nothing but a sprawl of cold ashes, and Denise is gone. You jolt upright, calling his name too loud, too fast. Valya's awake in seconds, panic flashing through her like static electricity. She stumbles to her feet, eyes darting everywhere. Denise, no answer, just forest. And that bone-deep silence that has followed you like a shadow since the beginning. You fan out, scanning the perimeter. His pack is still here. So are his boots, but his coat? Gone. Valya finds the first print. Barefoot. Again. Was he sleepwalking? She whispers, even though you both know the question is a placeholder for something worse. You follow the prints. The moss is disturbed in a clear path leading down slope, toward a shallow gully shrouded in mist. The further you go, the colder it gets. Not just temperature, something colder. You don't know how else to explain it, like walking into grief. After half an hour, you find him. Denise is kneeling in the center of the gully, facing away, shirtless, hands limp at his sides. His skin is pale, almost blue. Not frostbite, not quite hypothermia, just wrong. Valya races forward, drops to her knees beside him, grabbing his shoulders. Denise, what happened? Why did you leave? He turns slowly. His eyes are glassy, lips chapped, but he smiles. They showed me, he says. They were here before us, and we were trespassing. You shiver. What did they show you? His expression flickers, a glitch in the mask. The beginning and the end. It's all one thing. Cycles, loops, like the mountain breathes in people, then breathes them out again. Fringe theory? Possibly. But a few geologists once suggested that Khamar-Daban sits atop a unique quartz bed that, under the right pressure, could generate low-frequency vibrations, natural infrasound. The kind that messes with your brain, induces nausea, anxiety, hallucinations. Could it explain what happened? Maybe. Or maybe it's just a scientific band-aid for something older and darker. You help Denny up. He's weak. His legs tremble, but he walks. You don't speak again until you're back at camp. That night, he doesn't sleep. Neither do you. Instead, you sit in silence as he scratches something into his notebook. Spirals, symbols, circles within circles. You glance once and instantly regret it. The shapes don't make sense, but they feel like they do. Like they're trying to tell your brain a secret in a language it used to know. Valya throws the notebook into the fire. Denny doesn't react. He just watches it burn. The next morning, you head west toward what the map calls a logging road. It's your best hope of finding help, or at least a sign that the world beyond the trees still exists. Half a day in, Valya stumbles, not from exhaustion, but from the smell, burned wood, and something underneath. You crest a hill and find the remnants of a camp. Tents half melted, sleeping bags ripped open, scattered gear, and bones. Not all of them animal. You stare in silence. No birds, no flies. Just a memory etched into the land, still bleeding. Valya picks up a charred piece of fabric, recognizes the stitching. I think this was the group from '88, she whispers, the hikers who vanished. Official records list that group as missing, lost in a storm, but the dates don't match the weather. And the storm never happened. Historians still argue whether it was a cover-up, maybe a landslide, maybe exposure, maybe the first victims of whatever this is. You don't stay long. That night, the stars vanish behind thick, low clouds. The air tastes metallic. Denis mutters in his sleep, speaking a language you don't recognize. Not Russian, not even human, really. You stay awake with a stick in your hand, heart pounding like a drum from an ancient ritual. The mountain isn't trying to kill you, it's trying to remember you. You wake up still holding the stick, your hand cramped around it like it grew there overnight. Denis hasn't moved. He's lying curled into himself, arms wrapped tight, whispering under his breath. Valya sits by the fire pit, staring into ashes that don't smoke. You feel brittle, like a single loud word might crack you down the middle. We need to move, you say, though the words are just scaffolding for the panic hiding underneath. Valya nods numbly. Denise doesn't respond. Eventually, you coax him up. He's slow, limbs heavy, as if gravity's working double just for him. His eyes have shadows under them that look more like bruises. The trail, if you can still call it that, is thinning again. Trees crowd close. The undergrowth grabs at your boots like the forest is trying to hold on just a little longer. Everything feels warped, like you're walking through a painting that someone left out in the rain. And then you hear it, a hum, low and rhythmic, not wind, not insects. Deeper than that, like it's vibrating through your teeth. Dennis stops dead. It's the breathing, he says. Valya looks at him. The what? He turns, eyes wide but empty. The mountain, that's what it does. Breathes in hikers, exhales bones. Fringe idea? Totally. But a few out there researchers in the 70s speculated that Khamar-Daban, due to its unique position between tectonic plates, might be subject to geopathic stress zones. Places where electromagnetic fields behave unpredictably, where compasses spin and animals refuse to nest. It's not in your average textbook. But the hikers, they weren't average either. You pick up speed, You don't talk. Talking feels like tempting fate. By late afternoon, you hear the unmistakable drone of an engine. It's distant, faint, but real. Valya screams one sharp, ragged cheer, and you all break into a run, crashing through underbrush, scraping legs and arms. You hit the road like someone surfacing from a nightmare into daylight. It's real, a logging road. Muddy, rough, but real. And parked just around a bend, a red truck, windows down. A man in coveralls sits behind the wheel, sipping from a thermos. He sees you, stands up slowly. You lost? You almost laugh. Almost. Valya's already sobbing. Denis drops to his knees. You manage a nod. He drives you to the nearest ranger station. It's not much. Just 2 rooms and a radio, but there's coffee, a working stove, a toilet with a door that locks. You take turns washing up in a basin out back, watching dirt swirl into the grass like you're bleeding out the mountain. They call in authorities from Irkutsk. A small team arrives the next day. Plain clothes, serious faces, not much small talk. You tell them everything, or at least the version you can say out loud. They nod, take notes, ask no follow-up questions. A week later, you're on a train back to the city. Denise stares out the window the entire time. Valya scribbles in a notebook, over and over, drawing loops and spirals she doesn't remember making. You try to sleep, but every time your eyes close, the forest breathes. Years pass, you go back to school, get a grub, move away. Valya does too. You lose touch with Denise, but sometimes you dream. And in the dream, it's always the same. The lake, steaming in silence in the cabin. You walk toward it, but each step makes it further away. The air thickens, the trees turn to silhouettes, and just before you wake, you hear that low, pulsing hum. Historians still argue whether the events at Khamar-Daban were ever fully recorded. The few files that do exist were misplaced in a fire. Some say the remaining evidence was boxed up and shipped to a lab in Novosibirsk. Others claim it never existed at all, but you know better. One day you read an article online. Solo hiker missing in Khamar-Daban range. Search called off after 3 weeks. You don't even finish the piece. You just shut your laptop and go make tea, hands trembling, because they're still there, breathing in. Waiting. You wonder if the mountain remembers your name. Time has softened the edges, but never quite dulled them. It's been years since that climb, since the mountain took something from you that never came back. People ask about the trip sometimes, when they spot the faded scar near your collarbone or catch you flinching at thunder. You tell them the sanitized version. Weather turned. Friends got sick. You were lucky. You leave out the sounds, the colors, the taste of something metallic in the fog. You keep in touch with Valya through terse emails and the occasional birthday message. She teaches biology now, moved far west, married a botanist. Sometimes you both dance around the topic, tossing phrases like the hike or that summer, but you never dive in, as if the story might still be listening. One day she sends you a package. No note, just a small photo album wrapped in brown paper. Inside, the trip. Pictures you'd forgotten you even took. Lyudmila laughing, Timur flipping pancakes. Sasha perched on a rock with her socks mismatched. You flip through them slowly, carefully, like they might crumble. Each face grins at you from before, from the version of reality that still believed in happy endings. Then, at the back, one last image, one you didn't take. A photo of the 3 of you, Valya, Denise, and you walking down the road toward the logging truck, taken from behind. No footprints lead to where the photographer would have stood. You shut the album and put it in a drawer. Weeks pass, then comes a phone call, a voice you don't recognize, clipped, official. Are you the emergency contact for Denis, last name confidential? Your stomach drops. He was found, the voice says, in a hostel outside Irkutsk. dehydrated, disoriented, talking to himself in a mix of Russian, French, and something. Not quite either. He didn't have ID, just a laminated map, same as the one from the trip, folded and unfolded until the creases formed a crosshatch of desperate origami. You visit him, he's thin, pale, but his eyes light up when he sees you. They were real, he whispers. You remember, right? You nod, not because you believe it, but because denying it feels cruel. He grabs your wrist with a strength you didn't expect. Don't go back, you promise. But of course, one day you will, because that's how stories work. They don't end, they circle, spiral, fade, and return. Historians still argue about why some wilderness tragedies stick in the cultural imagination while others fade. The Dyatlov Pass mystery became legend. The Khamar-Daban Deaths remain mostly footnotes. But maybe that's the point. The stories that hide in shadows whisper longer. That summer is a closed chapter now, but every so often, something leaks through. A smell in the woods, a song on the wind, a half-remembered face from a dream. You live your life in the sunlight, but you glance over your shoulder more than most, just to make sure the trees haven't moved. And sometimes when your phone buzzes at night, you think about answering in whispers, just in case the mountain's listening, just in case it already dialed. Wind down, approx after 300 words. Now, if you're breathing slowed a little, if your mind feels like it's settling back into the softness of your pillow, that's good. Let the edges of the forest fade. Let the snow melt out of your memory. You made it. You walk through fear and fog and shadow, and somehow you're still here. Warm, safe, and entirely real. The story might still cling to you in places. It has a way of doing that, of lingering in the corners like mist in a valley. But it's just a story now, just shapes and sounds we pass through together. You don't have to carry it any further. Let the names blur. Let the footprints wash away. You're home. The mountain's still there, of course, out past the maps, beyond the reach of satellites. Maybe it always will be, but for now, for tonight, it's far. And you are close, to rest, to peace, to sleep. Let your thoughts drift like steam rising from a lake at dawn. Let your heart beat slow to the rhythm of quiet snowfall. There's no need to look back, not tonight. Close your eyes, and if you dream, let it be of soft moss and cool water, of clear skies and warm hands, of silence that doesn't follow you home. Thanks for sharing this time with me.